Hello, dear friends. I'm Margaret Thompson, a 68-year-old mother and grandmother from the heartwarming town of Maple Grove, Minnesota. Have you ever felt your heart splinter under the weight of words from those you cherish most? For me, the moment that pierced my soul was when my son-in-law, Daniel, fixed me with a cold stare and said, "Don't sit on our new sofa. It's expensive." That single sentence wasn't just a rebuke. It was a wound that stripped away my place in the family I'd poured my life into. This is my story of rediscovering my worth, reclaiming my voice, and guiding my daughter out of a marriage shadowed by hurt, all through the quiet, unshakable power of silence. Walk with me through this journey. And please share a comment about where you're joining me from or subscribe to hear more stories that stir the heart. Your voice means so much to me. I'm Margaret Thompson, 68 years old, and my home in Maple Grove, Minnesota, is a sanctuary of memories wrapped in white clapboard, with a porch where clematis blooms and a garden that hums with summer bees. In autumn, the maples along Main Street blaze with reds and golds, and the air carries the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Maple Grove, with its 10,000 souls, is the kind of town where folks linger at Rosie's Bakery to swap tales of the Harvest Festival or the high school football team's latest game. Sunday potlucks at First Lutheran Church are a sacred ritual where laughter and shared recipes knit us together. This is where I raised my daughter, Emily, with my husband, Walter, in a home filled with love's gentle noise. 3 years ago, Walter slipped away from me, taken by a heart attack in the quiet of night. I still feel him in the creak of his rocking chair, the faint scent of his pipe tobacco lingering in the den, the way he'd hum Amazing Grace while pruning our roses. His absence turned our home into a silent shell, the kind of quiet that presses against your chest. I used to be a third-grade teacher, loved for the way I'd bring the Velveteen Rabbit to life with voices that made my students giggle. But after retiring, and especially after Walter's passing, I felt myself fading, like a photograph left too long in the sun, not just from Maple Grove's warm community, but from the lives of those I held dearest. Emily, my only child, is 42 now, living a few miles away in a new suburban house with her husband Daniel, a banker with sharp ambitions, and their children, Lily, 10, and Ethan, 7. Family has always been my cornerstone. Walter and I worked tirelessly to give Emily a life full of possibility. Piano lessons, summer camps by Lake Minnetonka, a college fund scraped together from modest salaries. When she married Daniel and started her own family, I poured my heart into being there, baking cookies for Lily's school bake sales, sewing Ethan's Halloween cowboy costume, anything to keep our bond tight. But lately, Emily's calls have dwindled to brief check-ins, and when I visit, her smiles feel strained. I told myself it was her busy life, her part-time job at the library, the kids' soccer practices, Daniel's late nights at the bank. Yet deep in my heart, a quiet fear whispered that our connection was fraying, like a quilt worn thin at the edges. Walter's death left a void that no amount of gardening or church suppers could fill. I ached to feel close to Emily again, to rebuild the bridge between us. When she and Daniel bought their new house, a modern 3-bedroom with wide windows and a backyard perfect for the kids, I saw a chance to show my love in a way that would endure. I took every penny of my retirement savings, the nest egg Walter and I had saved for quiet years we'd never share, and paid off their mortgage in full. It was a sacrifice that left me with little, but to me, It was a testament to my devotion, a way to say, I'm still your mother, still here for you. This is my gift, I told Emily, standing in her gleaming new kitchen, my voice thick with emotion. Her eyes shimmered with tears as she wrapped me in a hug. Her warmth reminding me of the little girl who'd cling to me after a bad dream. We'll see you all the time now, Mom, she promised, and I held those words like a treasure. But promises, like spring blossoms, can wither too soon. One crisp October afternoon, I baked a batch of oatmeal raisin cookies, their warm, spicy scent filling my kitchen, with memories of Walter stealing one fresh from the oven. I drove to Emily's, picturing Lily and Ethan's delighted grins. As I stepped into their pristine living room, Daniel looked up from his phone, his eyes hard as flint. Don't sit on our new sofa, Margaret, he said, his voice clipped. It's expensive. The words hit me like a winter wind, stealing my breath. I stood frozen, the plate of cookies trembling in my hands, my cheeks burning with shame. It wasn't the sofa. It was the way he spoke, as if I were a stranger, an inconvenience in his perfect world. I forced a smile, my voice barely a whisper. Of course, Daniel. I set the cookies on the counter and retreated to the kitchen, where Emily was chopping carrots, her back to me. If she heard, she gave no sign, her silence cutting deeper than Daniel's words. I drove home in a daze, tears blurring the familiar streets of Maple Grove. I sat in my car outside Emily's house, the glow of their windows a painful contrast to the darkness in my heart. I remembered Emily at 5, her pigtails bouncing as she showed me a crayon drawing of our family, her voice bright with pride. Now I felt like a ghost, unseen and unneeded. That night, I curled up in Walter's rocking chair, the silence of my home swallowing me whole, and wept for the family I feared I'd lost. The weeks that followed were a slow, aching drift. Daniel never apologized, and Emily carried on as if nothing had happened, her silence a wound that festered. Each visit to their house felt like crossing a threshold into a stranger's domain. I'd bring small tokens, a library book for Lily, a toy tractor for Ethan. But the warmth I longed for was gone, replaced by polite nods and hurried goodbyes. One Saturday, I offered to take the kids to Maple Grove Park, where we'd spent countless afternoons on the swings, their laughter brighter than the summer sun. Daniel's response was swift and sharp. They don't need you to watch them, he said, his eyes not meeting mine. We have a nanny now. His words were a dagger, twisting in my chest. I nodded, my throat tight, and left without a word. Had I misread everything? I'd given so much, my savings, my time, the dreams I'd buried. As a young woman, I'd sketched landscapes in a secret notebook, dreaming of galleries and open skies. But I set that aside to raise Emily, to be the mother who was always there. Now, I questioned if those choices had built anything lasting, or if they'd only left me empty. The loneliness became a companion, heavy and constant. I'd sit by the fireplace, tracing the edges of a photo from our last family trip to Lake Superior, when Emily was 16. Her smile was radiant, Walter's arm warm around me, the lake sparkling like a promise. That memory felt like a lifeline, but it also sharpened the pain of the present. I was losing my daughter, and I didn't know how to stop it. Desperate for solace, I joined a support group at the Maple Grove Community Center, led by Sarah, a counselor whose gentle voice seemed to cradle every hurt. The group was a haven for folks like me, widows, retirees, souls navigating the quiet years. There, I met Clara, a 72-year-old widow with silver hair and a laugh that could light a room, though her eyes held the weight of loss. She'd buried her husband to cancer and hadn't seen her son in years, and we found kinship in our shared grief. One evening, as the group sipped coffee and shared stories, I poured out my pain, Daniel's cruelty, Emily's silence, the fear that I'd become invisible. Clara took my hand, her grip firm and warm. "Margaret, our children don't always see the scars they leave," she said, her voice steady. "But you can't keep giving until you're hollow. You're worth more than that, and it's time you believed it." Her words were a beacon, piercing the fog of my despair. I'd spent my life putting others first, but now I felt a stirring, a need to reclaim the woman I'd been, the woman I could still be. Clara's words took root, blooming into a resolve I hadn't felt in years. I made a decision that felt both daunting and necessary. I stopped paying Emily and Daniel's mortgage. No more gifts that went unthanked, no more bending to their indifference. It was a quiet rebellion, a way to say, "I am more than your safety net." Instead, I turned my heart toward myself, seeking the Margaret who'd been buried under decades of sacrifice. I enrolled in a painting class at the community center, my hands trembling as I dipped a brush into vibrant blue. The first stroke on canvas was like a memory awakening, the girl who'd sketched by the Mississippi River, dreaming of art. Each class brought a piece of her back, and I found joy in the swirl of colors, the way they told stories words couldn't. I began morning walks with Clara, our shoes crunching on frost-kissed leaves as we passed Rosie's bakery, the scent of fresh bread mingling with our laughter. We'd talk about everything, our childhoods, our losses, the books we loved, and those moments felt like reclaiming stolen time. I bought a leather-bound journal, its pages a sanctuary for my thoughts. One night, under the glow of a single lamp, I wrote, "I've been a mother, a wife, a teacher, always giving, but I'm also Margaret, a woman with dreams, with strength, with a voice that deserves to be heard. I won't let them erase me." Emily felt the shift, and it unsettled her. One evening, she called, her voice tight with worry. "Mom, why'd you stop paying the mortgage? Daniel's under so much stress at work. We can't manage without your help." I sat in Walter's rocking chair, the wood creaking under me, and steadied my breath. "Emily, I've given everything I could," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. "But I'm not just a bank account. I'm your mother, and I deserve respect." There was a long pause, her breath audible through the phone. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said, her voice breaking. I didn't realize how bad it was. Her apology was a flicker of light, but it didn't heal the wound. I knew my silence, my refusal to bend, would speak louder than any argument. It was my way of demanding to be seen. As autumn deepened, the truth about Daniel's behavior came into focus. At a church potluck, where tables groaned under casseroles and pumpkin pies, Rosie pulled me aside, her eyes soft with concern. "Margaret, word is Daniel's in trouble at the bank," she whispered. "They're cutting jobs, and he's scared he'll be next. It's eating him up." The news explained his sharp edges, the way he'd turned cold and cutting. But fear didn't justify cruelty, and I knew it was time to confront the deeper issue. I invited Emily to my house, setting out a pot of chamomile tea and a plate of cranberry scones, the kind Walter loved. We sat at my kitchen table, the afternoon light filtering through lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the wood. I took a deep breath and spoke from the heart. "Emily, I know Daniel's struggling at work," I said, meeting her eyes. "But that's no excuse for how he treats you or me. I've seen him snap at you, heard him raise his voice in front of Lily and Ethan. You're living in a shadow, honey, and you deserve to step into the light." Emily's hands trembled around her teacup, tears spilling down her cheeks. "He wasn't always like this, Mom," she said, her voice raw. "When we met, he was so gentle, so full of plans. But now, he yells at me, makes me feel small, even with the kids watching. I'm trapped, and I don't know how to get out." My heart broke for her, a mother's pain sharper than her own. I reached across the table, clasping her hands. "You're not trapped, Emily. You're stronger than you know. But you need help, a marriage counselor, a support group. I'll be with you every step, but you have to take the first one." She looked at me, her eyes searching for courage, and nodded. "I'm scared," she whispered, "but I'll try." Emily began seeing a marriage counselor, a kind woman named Dr. Larson, who helped her untangle the knots of fear and doubt. She also joined a support group at the community center for women facing emotional abuse, a circle of brave souls sharing stories of survival. I attended a few sessions with her, sitting quietly as she spoke of Daniel's anger, her voice growing steadier with each word. Those moments were a gift, knitting us closer than we'd been in years. I saw the Emily I'd raised, the girl who'd climbed trees and faced the world with fierce determination. But one frigid November morning, my phone rang, shattering the fragile calm. It was Emily, her voice trembling with panic. "Mom, Daniel's gone. He said he needed time to think. He took his clothes, his laptop, everything, and just left. I don't know where he is, and I'm terrified." I drove to her house, my heart racing, the winter air biting through my coat. Emily was curled on the sofa, her face pale, eyes red from crying. Lily and Ethan played quietly in the next room, their voices hushed as if they sensed the storm that had passed. The house felt hollow, its warmth drained by Daniel's absence. "I keep thinking he'll come back," Emily said, her voice barely audible. "But part of me hopes he doesn't. I'm so tired of living in fear, of never knowing when he'll snap." I sat beside her, wrapping her in my arms, feeling her tremble like a child. "You don't have to live like this," I said, my voice soft but firm. "You're stronger than you know, and you're not alone. We'll face this together." I called Tom, a retired police officer who'd been a friend since Walter and I moved to Maple Grove. Tom's gruff voice hid a heart of gold, and he still had connections in the department. "I'll track Daniel down," he said. "You and Emily stay strong." The next day, Tom called with news. "Daniel's at a cheap hotel in Minneapolis," he said. "He's keeping his head down, probably wrestling with his demons. He doesn't seem like a threat, but Emily should be careful." I shared the update with Emily, who nodded, her expression a mix of relief and dread. "What if he tries to come back?" she asked, her voice small. "Then we'll face him," I said, my resolve like iron. "But you're building a new life now, and he can't take that away." With my support, Clara's unwavering friendship, and the strength she found in counseling, Emily began to rebuild. She learned to set boundaries, to value herself and her children above Daniel's demands. She took a full-time job at the library, her confidence growing with each patron she helped, each story time she led. I watched her blossom, my heart swelling with pride for the woman she was becoming. We started hosting family nights at my house, a tradition that warmed every corner of my home. I'd bake apple pies, their cinnamon scent filling the air, and set out pitchers of lemonade. Lily and Ethan would sprawl on the living room rug, painting with me. Lily blending pinks and purples for a sunset, Ethan giggling as he drew a lopsided barn. Clara joined us, her stories of growing up on a farm sparking laughter, along with friends from the community center who brought their own warmth. Those evenings were a balm, stitching our family back together with threads of love. One twilight, as we sat on the porch watching the sky turn lavender, Emily took my hand, her fingers warm against mine. "Mom, I'm so sorry I didn't see how much you were hurting," she said, her voice thick with regret. "I was drowning in my own life, but now I see you, really see you. You're my rock." Tears welled in my eyes, a sweet ache in my chest. "All I've ever wanted is your happiness, Emily," I said, squeezing her hand. "And for us to be a family, truly." In that moment, I felt a wound heal, a connection reborn. We weren't just mother and daughter. We were partners, forged in shared strength and love. One gray December afternoon, Daniel appeared at my doorstep, his face gaunt, his suit rumpled. He looked like a man humbled by his own failures, his eyes carrying a weight I hadn't seen before. "Margaret, I need to talk to Emily," he said, his voice low. "I've been a fool. Work broke me, turned me into someone I hate. I want to make things right." I studied him, searching for truth in his words. Part of me wanted to turn him away, to protect Emily from more pain. But this was her moment, her chance to stand tall. I let him in, standing close as Emily faced him in the living room, her posture steady, her gaze unwavering. "I don't know if I can trust you, Daniel," she said, her voice clear despite the tremor in her hands. "You hurt me. You hurt our children. You made us feel small, and I won't live like that anymore. If you want to change, prove it. Go to therapy. Show me actions, not just words." Daniel's shoulders slumped, but he nodded, his eyes glistening. "I'm in therapy now," he said. "I know I've got a long way to go. I'm sorry, Emily, Margaret, for everything." I felt a flicker of hope, but I stayed silent, letting Emily lead. "We'll see," she said, her tone resolute. "But I'm not the woman I was. I'm building a life for me and the kids, and you're not part of it right now." Daniel left, his footsteps heavy on the porch. I turned to Emily, my heart bursting with pride. "You were incredible," I said, pulling her into a hug. "You're so strong, and I'm so proud." She smiled, a real smile, and I knew she was free, not just from Daniel, but from the fear that had bound her. Today, I stand in my garden, a paintbrush in hand, finishing a canvas of Lake Superior. The blues and golds weave together, capturing the summer we camped there when Emily was young, when life was a song of simple joys. My house is alive again, filled with the voices of Emily, Lily, and Ethan, who visit often. We bake pies, paint pictures, and laugh until the stars come out, each moment a stitch in the fabric of our family. Emily's thriving, her new job at the library a source of pride, her confidence a light that grows brighter each day. Daniel's in therapy, working to rebuild himself, but Emily's keeping her distance, focusing on her own path. She's not just surviving, she's living, and that fills my heart with a joy I thought I'd lost. As for me, I found Margaret again, the woman who paints, who dreams, who stands tall. I walk with Clara, share stories at the community center, and find grace in the small things. The warmth of a scone, the giggle of a grandchild, the hush of a Maple Grove sunset. My journal is full now, pages brimming with reflections on a life reclaimed. Silence, I've learned, is more than endurance. It's a quiet strength, a way to carve out your place in a world that sometimes forgets you. I used it to find my voice, to help Emily find hers, and to rebuild a family rooted in love and respect. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and please share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Your voice matters, and I can't wait to connect with you all.